for being with us here this afternoon, ladies. We'll go from your right to your left, and if you would each introduce yourselves and I guess give your job title when you worked here.
Kathy Netterman. I started out as a classroom instructor, and then I retired after 33 years. I started in 1970 and retired in 2003.
Mm-hmm.
And then I ended up as a service and support administrator at Always Industries.
Okay.
My name's Nancy Gray. I just retired in end of June after 38 years. And I started out as what they called case management. I was the only case manager for years until Amy came. And then it was us two for a while, and then they made these two SSAs. But anyways, that's what I did. I mainly worked as an SSA or case manager, mainly like doing social service type work and plans and things like that.
And I asked this of someone earlier, and they didn't know the answer. What is SSA?
It's a service and support administrator.
Okay, great.
I'm Amy Barhorst. I came here in 1994, and I was hired as a case manager at that time. And then everything evolved through the State Department, and we're currently called Service and Support Administrators, as Nancy said. And I just retired February 1st of this year, so I'm a newly retired person and loving every minute of it. So I spent the majority of my career here. I had a few other jobs and similar situations where I worked at Children's Services doing case management there with a caseload of 14 and over unruly and delinquents. So that was interesting. Had to get out of there after a while.
Yeah,
so that's kind of my history.
I'm Betty Garkey, and I started here in 1977 as an aide. I didn't go to college until after I had all three of my children, so I was still going to college when I started here. And then 2 years later, I finished my degree, and then I was phys ed, and I taught home skill classes. And then Kathy and we moved over as SSAs, I don't know, several years after that.
Yeah.
And then I retired in 2005.
Okay, great.
And us four were some of the older people.
Yeah.
We had a good time.
Yeah, we did.
And everybody worked hard. We worked well together.
Mm-hmm.
I was the baby, by
She
the
was
way.
the baby. She's still the baby.
Yeah, guys, she's got to say that.
We had to teach her a lot of things.
She
So
caught
Kathy and
on.
we left the classrooms at the same time.
Yes.
And moved over to, which was Always Industries now. We started our second career there.
Mm-hmm.
Then ended up back here
That's right.
before we retired.
They were here, and I was a few years when this area used to be the workshop.
Mm-hmm.
So it just had an office up here and a little office for the clerical administrative person, and the rest was that. And they also had a workshop down on, what's the name of that street?
Well, it was also Basil.
Basil,
It was-
another Basil down
It
by
was very
Stampo.
confusing.
But they
So
had
it's-
two workshops then until they built the new one.
I did too.
That was a little.
So at this point, we know who you are, so you don't have to answer in any particular order, but what drew you to this field? What made the working with people with developmental disabilities attractive to you?
I had a really good friend, Nancy Kettler, my high school friend, and she had a brother, Joe, that's still in the program, and he had cerebral palsy and various disabilities, and I was just used to that, and I was actually fascinated. Their family was very active, and Nancy's dad made all kinds of adapted equipment for Joe so that he could get around, and that's how I became interested in the field.
Where did you grow up?
Here in New Bremen. I went to Bluffton College and had a degree in teaching.
Mm-hmm.
I became interested. I worked in mental health for 7 years, almost 8, and I did aftercare, but I also worked with anybody with any kind of disability, and that's what kind of drew me to apply here. So.
I had that children's services stint, and we were right next door to the mental, the DD board at the time in Miami County, Riverside, and I worked with some of those folks in conjunction in some of our cases. And I lived here in New Bremen, but was working in Miami County, Troy, and my kids were doing daycare here, and Nancy Conradi, who was our nurse for years at the Industries, was also working as a nurse at the daycare, and she knew I was looking for another job, and she said, hey, there's a job opening at Auglaize County Board of DD. If you'd like to apply, I think you'd be great at it. So that's kind of how I found my way here. And it was much closer for my kids, too, because I was just blocks away from work instead of 36 miles.
Mm.
I was in college at the time, had 3 children, wonderful husband, and I had to do my student teaching, and I was working on a degree in elementary ed and special ed. So I did my student teaching with the 3rd grade class, and then I did my student teaching here, and I decided, gosh, special ed. Well, I'm sorry, I did my student teaching in a special ed class, and I thought those kids are a lot nicer to work with than 3rd graders. So, and actually, then when I graduated, I was offered a job. I came here, but there was no openings, and I accepted a job at Shelby Hills, which is the same program in Sydney, in Shelby County. Well, hadn't even started yet, and the superintendent from here called me and said, Betty, we just have an opening. I said, I just took a job. So I resigned from my job I didn't start at. And we lived at Minster, so it was easier going 3 miles down the road instead of 20. So, and they're just special. Once you start here, they're just special, yes.
Speaking of the Shelby County, when I first started, Shelby County came here. They didn't have their own program.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yes, and so our hours were like 9:30 to 2:30 because of the bus routes. Buses went into Shelby County, went way out to Waynesfield, and so, and I don't know exactly what year, but at some point Shelby County started their own program, and then they would take a classroom at a time. I think they took the preschool, or not, we didn't have preschool at that time, but the primary type age group, and then they worked up to the next age group, and then they took them all. So at that point, our program in the classroom was cut almost in half. We probably had about half of the Shelby County and half Auglaize County.
I think when this first started, this program, and Kathy and Betty might know more, but didn't like Kettler's and Kaywards, didn't they have it in Gilbert's house or something, or how was that?
Somebody said it was in a breezeway.
Oh,
Mr. Kaywood said the first class was in a breezeway at somebody's house.
Oh, I knew it was at someone's
And that
home.
could be, I remember way back when I went to elementary school here in New Bremen, they had a classroom in the basement of the old elementary school here in New Bremen.
I was going to say, that's what I remember.
Because
starting
they would have recess at opposite times that we did.
I remember hearing it, that it started in the basement of the school. But it was some really dedicated parents.
Yeah.
That got the whole program started.
And that's actually why we're located in New Bremen instead of the county seat, because most county boards are located in the county seat because it's centralized. But this grassroots effort just took hold, and they built the school, and there was really just no reason to abandon it and build a new place or find a new place to go. So it has caused a little bit of what should I say? Not really friction, but people are always like, oh, it's all the way in New Bremen, you know, and they act like it's, 4 hours away or something, but that's the way it is in rural America, I guess.
And when I started, the adults in the workshop, they did arts and crafts. They sold, they made Christmas ornaments, rugs, and then they would sell them at the county fair, and people would order them, and then we were so excited when Crown said, gee, why don't you do some work for us? And I can remember getting, coming in at night and on Saturdays helping set up the workshop. So we went through that transition. Those first years, the clients did nothing but just homemade things. They made Christmas ornaments, doll babies, pot holders. So they went from that to industry.
And what were the first jobs at Crown then?
They put U-boats together. No, that was for Marwell. But I don't know what they did for Crown. I can't remember.
I don't know. Crown's always been very
supportive,
supportive, and they've even taken some in as employees there.
in more
Like them.
recent years.
Yes,
Mm.
Marwell, you're right, did U-boats. And then we did things for New Knoxville, those paper filters
Oh, yeah.
For Brookside.
Brookside, yes. So eventually, they found out that our people did excellent work, quality control was good, and, you know, our people made 10, 20 times more money
Yeah.
doing industry than they did
Mhm.
the little sewing
Crafts.
crafts.
Another interesting thing that I remember when Betty and I moved to the All Blaze Industries, they just built that building. I'm not sure what year that is,
So I think it was 87.
but it was unreal. We had a waiting list of people to
Yeah.
come into the workshop because of the space. We
Mhm.
didn't have the space and we had a waiting list. And as soon as we moved to that building, I think we took in
I remember.
40, 50 extra
Oh, at least,
adults
yes.
that were on
Mhm.
this quote waiting list.
Because we
And-
were all here together.
Yeah.
And it was surprising to me how many people, when Amy mentioned being here in New Bremen, how many people, and what I'm going to say, the more rural areas that had no idea that we existed. They had no idea that it was a county program and there was no cost
Yeah.
for them and that transportation was provided.
Mm.
And it just seemed like
Oh,
whoosh.
it just came out.
And you
woodwork.
know, you think of, you know, they had disabled children living with them 24 hours
Yeah.
a day, and they would come here from, say, 9 till 2 or 2:30, and what a great thing for them.
Yeah.
They had some time. And this one couple said, we do all our socializing during the day, we eat out, we go to the movies, because at night, they had a handicapped child to take care of, and they just, you know, appreciate it.
Mhm.
The
Yeah.
opportunity for them to have some free time, which they certainly deserved.
And also much better for the person.
Yes.
Because they got out and
Yes.
met people and were part of the community. So.
Yeah.
And with Kathy's talking about when the workshop opened, it was called Oakley's Industries, and it was the only workshop available to people.
Mm.
And then as time went on, there's 5 or 6 or more around that they can go to, and there's also like day, well, like a day
Yeah.
happiness. Well, like capabilities that they just
Oh,
go
yeah.
out and do social and they don't work.
Isn't that like Ken Holman?
Yeah, that's what he's done. Hmm. And so it really,
Day programming.
Day programming, and that all got, you know, really went wild too really fast. Once those others started opening, you know, I mean, Oakley's Industries still got some, and then all these other agencies, and then Oakley's Industries also went private and weren't in with the county board anymore, maybe
It
10
wasn't
years
too
ago.
long ago, really.
5 years ago.
There might have been
And-
7 or 8.
And we just talked to one of the former clients, and he remembered all of it, and he's 64, so he goes to Capabilities, which is like a retirement program, and I think how great, because they want to enjoy retirement
Yeah.
just like the rest of us.
Mhm.
So, that it's,
And it
so
gives
much
them
has been
choices.
added.
Yeah,
to
it gives them
Yes,
a
they have
choice.
choices, where
Yeah.
before
It has
They
grown
didn't.
so much
you were
from the
kind of the
time
only thing.
Yeah.
we
It's
started.
amazing.
And that's
isn't it?
what's supposed to happen.
That's
so
right.
I'll
Yeah.
be glad.
Yeah.
That's right. We saw the transition from the
Mhm.
making the ornaments to
Yeah.
I mean, and that was a big,
Yeah.
that was a big transition.
That was.
And now they have community employment for
Yeah.
our folks, so they're
And
There-
it's
there are-
interesting to me too, from way back when I first started, we were not any way connected to the education, Ohio Department of
Yeah.
Education. And then at some point, because we just did, like, I'm gonna call it life skills, you know, being able to take care of themselves and basic time telling and money skills and socialization, that type of thing. And then when we became sort of affiliated or under some direction of the Department of Education, we had to start writing plans. Initially, when I was here, we
Mhm.
did not have to do any plans.
Mhm.
And then they sort of liked us because
Yeah.
we had money.
Yeah.
You know, people supported our program.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. They always
And,
been.
and at one point, they really didn't think what we did was worthwhile.
Mm.
Yeah, it was hard when the classrooms transitioned into the schools, the public schools. The parents were really upset about that. I mean, they felt their kids would be taunted and would be different and wouldn't enjoy it. And some of them held out quite a while. But eventually, you know, the only classrooms we ended up having here was the preschool. You know, and really we had infant, you know,
We had
early
early intervention, which is birth to 3. We had classrooms for a long time here, but the State Department changed all that now. I'm sure you've already interviewed someone who knew all about that, but the State Department decided that that needed to be done in the child's familiar environment instead of in a classroom.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So then the classrooms for EI were done, and that's why the board rents the classrooms out to the preschool. So.
And they would stay in the classroom till did they have to be 18 or 21 to go to
21
work?
or
21
22.
when they went to the workshop. So they would go right from the classroom here.
Back in the day, yeah.
Back in
Yeah.
the days, yeah.
When I started in '94, that was
Gone.
gone.
Yeah, yeah.
Everybody was in the school. Any school-age student was in the school. And then, when they graduated from school-age programming, then they had the choice of going to the industries or wherever else was available. So.
They called them MH units when they were here and when they first went to the schools. And the kids originally just was only included in certain classes. Like first, they just they had their own classroom, but they would be included in like gym and choir, lunch, or, things that they felt they could do. Now they're just included in a classroom like all the other kids.
That's what Michael and I were talking during the break, and he was saying that when they came over to Wapakoneta, he didn't really see them in most of his
because
classes.
they were mainly.
Well, and not to correct you, but there are still
Are there?
units where they're just their own classrooms
She would know.
for more of the more involved kids.
Oh.
So they do more mainstreaming, but they still do
They do
have
have
separate units.
Well, you worked
Yeah.
with the children, you would know.
Yeah.
So what would you say were the biggest challenges that you had with the kids, the parents, the community?
Parents
Parents.
were
And
always
we would
positive.
have, like Kathy said, we had to write plans. So once a year you sat down with the parent and the client supervisor, and case manager probably, and we would have a plan of goals that they would work on that year. And, after the meeting, the parents said, "You girls are saints, you're gonna go to heaven." And we said, "No, we go home at 3:30, we get paid.
You're the ones.
You take care of that child 24/7, but that's how they were, they just appreciated us. And, they never thought of it as a burden, but we would say, no, we're not, this is a job to us.
Yeah.
It's you parents that are taking care of your adult children. And I think about it, parents in their 60s and 70s,
Oh, yeah.
taking
80s.
care of 30, 40-year-olds, changing their diapers, putting them in out of wheelchairs. I don't know how a lot of them did.
I don't either.
Just sheer will, I guess.
Yes.
But I will say, for me personally, I think the biggest challenge was when everything became money related with Medicaid.
Mm-hmm.
Because if anybody knows anything about Medicaid, it's all your T's have to be crossed and your I's have to be dotted, and everything kind of changed.
Document.
Yes, documentation was big, and also our plans were bigger because then after these two left, I think it was, or maybe not, we had waivers before you guys left, didn't we?
Yes.
Okay. But that waiver program, which is a Medicaid program, is just huge now. Like, a person with disabilities doesn't really get services unless they're on a waiver. And there are hoops to jump through and so forth. And the plans have just become bigger and bigger because you have to make sure that everything is just so in order to build Medicaid. So in doing that, they've taken the personal stuff out of the job. It's more pushing paper than it is being with the people. And that's what really started to grate on my nerves. And
Me too.
Yeah, and when
I don't enjoy it. I didn't
Yeah.
enjoy it at the end of my career
And
because
when-
it was all about that.
When
Yeah.
I left, I had to document, and I think Kathy probably did too before she retired, every minute of every day. You had to
We
fill
had
out
to.
who you did it, what client you were with, how long,
Case note.
what building, and a case note for every minute of every day. And my gosh, that took so much of our
Yeah.
time that it was paper, and that's what
I
was
remember
discouraging to me.
when Betty and I were at the workshop, we were with the adults, they would come in and they would stop by if they had any problem. Some of them were living in a group home. At that point, there weren't too many living in
Smaller homes.
smaller
No.
homes.
No.
It was mainly group home or at home. And they would come in if there was any problem, they'd come right to you and say, guess what, blah, blah, blah. And you, right there, you could nip it. You
Yeah.
could talk to them, they wouldn't get excited about it. Say, I'm gonna check into that, I'll get back with you. And you really knew them almost as well as you knew your own family members.
Yeah.
You really did. Well, then at some point, and it could have been this paperwork, we were not supposed to be in that close of contact with them because we were I don't know, but so we had to move our offices over here versus at the workshop. And so if there was any problem, then somebody over there had to call us and say, so-and-so's upset because of this. Then we had to get in our cars and go over there. By that time, a half hour had passed.
Yeah.
And sometimes the behavior had elevated. You
And
know,
we missed that.
Yes, and you just
Yeah.
didn't have that
Yeah.
contact. That I thought was so important.
Yeah.
And when I came in '94, we were already over here. I never worked at the workshop, so everything was already, all the stuff was telephone, like, so and so is having a hard
Hotline.
day or
Yeah.
whatever.
And then if it was a serious problem, then we turn it over to the case managers.
Yeah. And Nancy and I had to case note every minute of our day for our entire career
Yeah.
here. So that is one thing that if I never
Oh.
have to write another case note, it's heaven to me.
Yeah.
And my biggest challenge was at first when we had case notes, you had a piece of paper and you put the
yeah.
client's name, and you could do it at home, or I'd do it at watching
Yeah.
TV at night. I'd have on my little notes. My husband and I'd be going playing car. So what are you doing? So doing my case notes, lay in bed at night, finish up your case notes, and that didn't mind. Then we had to do everything on the computer. So then that meant you had to get that done during the day or Sunday afternoon or Sunday night, come back,
Yeah.
because there was just not enough time. And I really miss that because you spent so much time doing paperwork. And I think teaching in the public schools, they say the same thing.
Yeah,
The
they do.
paperwork's getting so, documentation's getting so overwhelming, there's hardly time to spend with the students. And that was a challenge for me.
That was.
Lots
Yes.
has evolved.
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
But
For me, it's just more like every day is so much. I mean, it seems like every week you're having to learn more and more and more. And I don't know about you guys, but as I age, it's harder to.
Exactly
take
why
in
I
all
was
that.
trying to.
So
There were constant changes, on the computer programs that the state wanted us to do, and they always got more difficult, and it was more difficult for me to learn them. So.
Well, I remember we had to learn the computers.
Yeah, you did.
I had a young lady in the office next to me, and she was good with computers. She was new. She didn't know the clients. She would help me on the computer, and I would help her with the clients. I said, "No, this is what you want to say to them. This panic
Yeah.
So we had a little gig going.
Yeah,
she would
that was
help me.
good. Was that Becky?
I had Tanya.
Oh.
I had experience with the clients,
Yeah,
and she had
yeah.
experience with the computer. I know when we moved here, there was hardly any office space, and there was a room here called the milk room.
Oh, yeah.
That's where they kept the coolers, and we always kept the milk in there for lunch. Well, Kathy and I had to move here, and they said, "We have bad news. The only room empty is the milk room." We go, "Well, who's going in there?" "You're both going in there." So Kathy and I started our career in the milk room.
I started mine in an empty classroom that they had diaper changing, and a store that they earned tokens to go spend money, and there was something else. And then the speech therapist was in there with me.
But we
So it
were
was
in the
a
milk
fort.
room for a year or two.
Yeah, I know you. That's why I remember walking down there.
They turned the temperature up, right?
Yeah,
But
barely.
they had coolers. They took them out. But I remember us saying, "Well, who's going to be in the milk room?" They said, "Well, no, we have something else to show you. You're both going to be in the milk room."
Kind of another challenging thing, and that I thought is earlier on when I first started, there was constant change in superintendents, and they all were different personalities and kind of expected things done different ways. So you're kind of always changing around, and I think I counted 8 or 10 in my years here.
I guess so. Yeah.
Or more.
But staff-wise, we were all.
they were
About most of the
senior
staff I worked with retired from
Mhm.
here, so we had the same staff, which was great.
We still have pretty good staff.
Yes, you
Yeah,
do. A lot of the
longevity.
staff
Yeah.
is still here.
Yeah, that
That
was
was
there
here when I
you
retired,
retired.
yeah.
Mhm.
So,
Well, look, we all spent, 28 or more
Yeah.
years here.
Yeah.
Right?
33. Yeah, you had the most.
No, she
I
did.
did.
Oh, you
You
did?
did.
I
Oh my
started after
gosh.
Kathy, but I had to work a lot of years after.
So talk about challenges, what about the rewards?
Oh,
Lots of rewards.
Just like
Too
Ken
many
Holman.
to talk.
yeah.
He remembered
I've been
us.
retired 20 years.
I
and-
know. It about made me cry. when
Yeah.
His niece came up and she said, Kenny wants his picture taken with you. And I thought, oh, they're making him do that. He
Yeah.
goes, Garky,
Yeah.
I haven't seen him since I retired probably. So,
And I see a lot of the clients like shopping now that they're out and about,
yes.
especially like at Kroger and stuff.
Yeah.
Always speak. They remember, and I
Mhm.
remember.
And we have to admit they all loved us.
Yeah,
Well,
that's right.
we were like their second moms. If
Yeah,
you think
yeah.
about
It was much more personable
Yeah,
than it
Yeah.
is
don't you
now.
think? I mean,
Yeah, that's
they
true.
all,
Well, I think you three probably had more personal.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you didn't
than
get
I
that as
did.
long as
Yeah.
we did.
I was already sort of that way when I came.
Yes, yeah.
So, I mean, I still had nice, very nice relationships with my
Yeah.
Mhm.
families and my
Mhm.
parents. Because I had a lot of my career was spent with children on my caseload. So I not only had the kids, but also the parents and their concerns and issues.
Well,
So
the
forth.
numbers grew too, Amy. So when we were starting,
Correct.
there was a lot less people, and you had the time you could spend with them
That's
and their
true.
family.
And when we started, we did everything. We did bus duty.
Mhm.
Nowadays teachers don't do bus duty, the aides do it. We did bus duty. We did lunch hour, help assist with eating. We started a lot of activities like we said, our people never get out. Let's do some field trips. I mean, I can remember there was a little movie theater in Minster Crescent,
Oh, yeah.
and I knew the man that owned it. So some of our clients had never been to a movie theater. So about once a month, probably Kathy, we would take, busload of them to the movies. We went to the Cincinnati Zoo. We were crazy one year. We decided to take a day trip to Chicago. I went to Chicago 5 times one year.
Yeah.
Those were long days. And we just, we started to do more
could do that.
social
Yeah.
things. And it was fun because they
Enjoyed
had
it.
experiences that they never had before.
Mhm.
Right.
We take them Christmas shopping
Yeah.
and just do a lot of things that,
See, we as SSAs aren't even allowed to do what they call direct service.
Yeah.
That's against
Yeah.
the rules.
So I guess we had
We had the better
job, I think, yeah.
Yeah.
because when they
Mm.
stopped this Christmas shopping, we weren't allowed to do that anymore.
Yeah.
Mhm.
These parents were outraged.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Because they said their child felt so good because they had a present for family
Yes.
members. Because the parents would send a list and
Yeah.
money. Maybe they were in an exchange and had gotten a nephew's name or something, and said they were so excited because they did their own shopping,
Yeah.
and no one knew what the
Mhm.
gift was.
Yeah.
And we took them to ice capades, we took them out to eat, and just, did a
things
lot
to
of
do.
things that, and the parents really liked that because, and we would go to Shelby Hills, we would go there for a Halloween dance on a Saturday night. Nowadays, would anybody give up a Saturday night? We enjoyed it. And the parents said, oh, it was so nice. They said, we went out and played cards and ate out on Saturday night because they knew. And so we had the fun, I think, of
I do
starting.
too.
We did a lot of social
Yeah.
things,
Mhm.
which was a lot more fun.
Until
I
they
do
moved
think-
over here.
Until we moved over here.
Oh, sorry, girls.
I do think that the rewards, though, that I see have been more about people really getting independent,
Mhm.
being
Yes,
able to
that's
work
what
in
I
a
was
job with peers,
Yes.
with others who are working the same job. The evolution of how we treat people with developmental disabilities has just
Oh.
huge
Mhm.
evolution. And just the fact that they're, one of the slogans we always use here is we're more alike than different.
Yes.
So
That's good.
that's very true, and I don't think that was recognized,
No.
25 years ago.
No.
So I'm happy
And we
to
got
say.
they built a group home in Walcott when we were here, so that was a great thing for us to see the parents that no longer could care for their adult
Right.
child They could move to the group home, and they loved it there.
And we had that respite bed there,
yes,
which
and we
is
had a respite bed
for
if
emergencies,
parents
you know,
wanted
then
to
that
go
got kind
away
of
for a couple
difficult.
days. But so we did get to see that change, which was good.
Yeah.
And you're right, Amy. Seeing them be like going out to a restaurant. We had one young man. He never talked. He never said one word. And I remember we were coming home from Ice Capades, and we stopped at McDonald's, and my friends at Pitwork here would say, well, how do you get everybody in a restaurant? I said, believe me, when you pull up with a school bus with disabled children, the whole McDonald's clears out. We never have a problem. You know, you bring a couple wheelchairs in,
Yeah.
everybody heads for the door.
Oh.
So I ordered his lunch, and I said, you like hamburger? You like French fries? You want a Coke? I said apple pie. So I said apple pie. He goes cherry.
Oh.
And that was the first time I ever heard him say a word. No, go down. Because I ordered him apple pie. I said, well, he wants pie. And he said cherry. And I mean, I just brought tears to my eyes because that was the first time he ever talked. Because he wanted something so bad
Yeah.
that,
He knew.
because everybody always just put food in front of him. And
Yeah.
I go, everybody likes apple pie. He looked at me and he said, cherry. No, it was like, that was one of my fondest memories.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cherry pie.
He does talk more now.
Does it good?
A lot more.
Yeah.
I wish
So-
so too, because I never heard him.
Yeah.
All of a sudden,
You
he
know.
started talking a lot.
Yeah.
Happy.
When I first got here, I didn't know he talked. I didn't
Yeah.
know he used words, you know.
Yeah.
Um,
never-
and then he, I mean, I don't think he did it when I first got here in '94, but
Yeah.
he developed that. And you know, he was probably in his 30s or 40s before
Mhm.
he started talking. So
Mhm.
I think it had to do with him being more comfortable and feeling like he was accepted and, you know, being encouraged.
And they just sort of become part of our families, you know. Kathy's daughters, I think, my daughters, they
Yeah.
had a summer camp, they volunteered at summer camp, and then Art, can't say his last name, we have little jobs to do.
Yeah.
He would come home after workshop, and we would hire him to do
Mhm.
some work around the yard and bring him home, you know. And
He's the first
they
one to
just-
get his driver's license.
Yeah, we had somebody get a driver's license.
We have
That was
several of them
exciting.
now.
Yeah, so,
Mhm.
well, other than, yeah, so that's,
was
everything
fun.
was good. It was
It
the
was
best job I could
Best
have
job
ever
I
had.
ever
Yeah, I
had.
did too.
Until the last 3 years.
Yeah.
And then we got put over here, you know.
And then they
and,
got to do my
Yeah.
job. Our
And then-
job.
Yeah, and then they were
They
like,
didn't
well,
like
you've
it.
done that? Oh.
you know, no personal contact. Well, not
Yeah.
no.
Not much.
But I always think we had a lot of good years, so.
Oh yes.
And
I-
this changes no matter where you work.
Yep.
Yeah, I always laugh because when I first started, you girls had those 5-page, you know, they were, you know, you'd write on the plan,
Oh, yeah.
and then you
Oh,
give
they're
one to the
carbon
carbon
copies.
copies.
Yeah.
They give one to the individual, one to me, and what I always like. And then all of a sudden, when these computers and that come around, I'm like, oh. But see, I thought the carbon copy thing worked better.
I know.
You didn't have to send it out afterwards. Everybody had it.
Yeah, but you could lose it.
Well, that's
When
true.
when you've got it scanned in the
That's true.
computer, it's there, unless your computer goes
I guess.
awry.
Hmm.
Anyway, any more questions for us? We're very chatty.
Yeah,
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 that's
that's
all.
us.
No, it was,
We're
no,
chit-chat.
we all did. Everybody
Mhm.
loved it.
Or we wouldn't have been there that
No.
long.
No.
No.
Is there anything else you think people should know about the Board of Developmental Disabilities?
Well, I just think the support of the county and the communities, we could not have done things
Yeah.
without that, you know. And the industries that helped us get our industry started.
And I hope everyone realizes that it really is important that this whole population continues to evolve.
Yeah.
And they still need our support, and they still need to be, you know, they've always needed to be seen as people.
Yeah.
They're
Individuals,
people,
yes.
Mhm.
just like we are. And it's, you know, I know sometimes the way they look or the way they vocalize may be scary, but they're just like you and me.
Mhm.
And you just need to remember that.
And that's the change we saw. I was in the classroom, and then John Storr was the superintendent at the time, and he said, Betty, he said, next year, a lot of the students are going to be going to public school, and he said, we're going to have to, you know, cut some staff in the classroom. He said, there's an opening in the workshop.
Is that how you got the
SSA,
workshop?
yes. He said, we need another SSA and you would have a teaching degree. So then went home and mailed it over and thought, okay, so then I moved to the workshop because I probably would have lost my teaching job so I went through that transition of where, a lot of the kids left here, the ABC Center, and went to but it was a good move because they got out, so then I hooked up with Kathy.
You were a habilitation specialist
Yes,
at that point,
yes.
right? And then you moved to.
We basically did the same
Same
job,
thing.
but had
Different.
oodles of different names.
Yeah.
Plan coordinator, habilitation specialist,
And also
SSA.
the job changed
Yes.
too with every
title.
different
Yeah.
title.
But it's
Even
a
though it
great
was
program,
basically the
so
same.
I'm glad you're doing this because it needs recognition.
Right, and people need to know we're here.
That's right.
It's a good
Because
group
it's
of
been
people
hard.
that are working here.
Mm-hmm.
Always been good people that I've worked with, and there is now too. And their heart's in the right place. They want to make the individuals as independent as possible, help them live their dreams, and I think that's another important thing people should know about the county board.
And like Kathy said, when we could take on more clients, it was those parents, 8 o'clock in the morning from 8 till 2 or 3, they had, like I said earlier, they had time to themselves, which, everybody deserves. So it was to me, that was really a
It's a win-win.
blessing. It was
Yes,
a win-win,
it was.
yes.